Welcome to Ready Row USA. I'm Tara Morgan. I'm here with Mark Wilson from All-American Rowing Camp. Welcome to the Ready Row USA podcast this morning. We are continuing our regular broadcast featuring the best of rowing news, gadgets, and gear from clubs, companies, and rowers across the country. Today, Mark and I are going to talk about lifelong rowing, rowing and aging, and everything that comes with it. But first, Ready Row USA is part of the International Rowing.Chat network. You can subscribe to receive notifications of upcoming shows, send in your news tips, and join our community on this website and our YouTube channel. Introducing our regular panelists, the producer of Ready Row USA, Charlotte Pierce. Co-producer is myself, and our regular correspondent is Mark Wilson. Our executive producer is Rebecca Caroe of Rowing.Chat. And today we've included a video clip of Masters women's coach Reba Knickerbocker of Bend the Blade talking about our topic of rowing and aging. So we want to thank our sponsors this morning. We want to thank Just Strong for their products. You can get a discount at juststrong.com using our hashtag. Next sponsor is Mind Games by Annie Vernon. It's a signed copy you can get if you order it direct from bloomsbury.com. And finally, Mark, do you want to take this one?
Sure. Rose and Thorn Active Bras. You get a 10% discount by going to roseandthorn.com, and every female athlete and probably a few male athletes need the best in sports bra attire. So we are thankful for all of our sponsors, and we appreciate the support. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much. We've done our introductions, and right now we're going to go to a clip from Reba Knickerbocker from Bend the Blade.
We hope.
Yeah, she's pretty cool. She does a Masters Women's Rowing Symposium on the East Coast. She and I were going to collaborate a little bit. Okay, here she is.
I think there tends to be a shift in the kind of community that you're connected to, especially if you've retired and you're no longer going to a job every single day and connected to that community. It's important to remain connected to another community. So the third piece is coaching. I can't emphasize enough how important it is for coaches to be aware that there is an aging process. I'm not going to, diss on the coaches out there, but certainly there are coaches who are maybe in their 20s or 30s or even 40s who aren't necessarily so aware of the fact that the rowers around them are aging.
Okay, that's a great place to start. Mark, I have coached a lot of seniors, and by senior, I'm going to quantify my meaning of the word senior to 55 and older.
Thank you.
Yeah. So let's talk about you and I. Let's share our experience as a coach of older rowers, and you go ahead.
Yeah.
Talk about your experience.
I appreciate that, Tara, saying that seniors are maybe 55 and over, since I'm under 55, but just barely. So I'm still just a little, but I'm a very active rower, and I think about my own rowing when I'm coaching. And I think that what Reba was just alluding to is really important in the fact that as I continue to be a rower, I think about the time that I have available. I think about the duration of the exercise that is probably a little less in duration to get the quality of exercise and the quality of rowing that I want to get with it, but still get a good workout. So I think the idea of making sure that you're being aware as a coach of the time commitment, the time availability, but also the endurance level of the athletes. And quite frankly, we don't need to row for 3 hours to get a really good workout. And usually as the time goes on, the quality of rowing or quality of strokes might actually decrease. So I'm very aware of that. And I think that's one of the important things that Masters coaches and those coaches that Reba was just talking about have to take into account is that time and energy output. So
yeah, so I totally agree. My experience was with a really dynamic group of rowers called the Midday Rowers at a boathouse here in Seattle, and they rowed at 9 o'clock in the morning. So timing, right? Offering programs at your club that are group and coached programs, because I believe that as the rowers get older, the safety factor and enjoyment factor goes down if they're just going out and they're single by themselves, or maybe with one friend. I see that a lot in the older rowers, and I feel like there used to be a shift to go from team rowing to a single. And I actually would argue that they need to come back to the group rowing. Even they could row singles, but in that group setting, I think is really fun, provides the social aspect. Provides accountability, somewhere to be, a class to be at, and also be able to set goals with your coach. We would do things like shorter pieces, and I would actually stay closer to shore because we were in a big lake, and I wouldn't take them out into the middle of the lake because I never knew at what point someone would have another heart attack or another stroke or have an injury come up or have something happen when I'm in the middle of some piece. And I think me as a coach, I found it really important to have a really open dialogue with my rowers and say, it's okay. Like, tell me if you're not feeling well today. Tell me if you need to take it easy today. Tell me if you want to work really hard today, and you need to work out some kinks. But as coaches, I think we need to really be approachable and be aware of what happens to the body and what's really good for those particular rowers, right? And how they're responding.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything you said is spot on. I think programming that time frame where people, it may be a little dead time or a downtime at the boathouse or within the program. I think having those programs, I did the same thing actually, Tara, when I was in Oak Ridge. I created a program called Moms in May, and it was an intro program or an intro to rowing program based in quads. We had 2 quads, we had 8 people. It was twice a week for the month of May. So they got 8 rowing sessions, and it started at we started about 9:30 and we went on until 11:30, and then they went to lunch. And it was fantastic. It was a great kind of opportunity to program those times that your boathouse might be a little bit quieter. So taking those things into account is a great thing. And that goes right along with, the venue itself, making sure that the venue is still safe, that you're not having, increased motorboat traffic or something like that as you're putting people out in the water. And quite honestly, I think we all have seen it. There's super uber competitive masters out there, but there are also a lot of people who might be, as they get started, a little timid or a little standoffish of those uber competitive folks. So having the opportunities to give people a non-competitive, or at least not race ready kind of thing, thinking about Masters Nationals or some big regional or something like that, having those programs that are available just to smile, like these folks in our picture right here. That picture was actually taken in central France, and great group of people going off and learning how to row and having a great time and enjoying the outside. So that's what it's all about.
Yeah. And with this in the community here in Seattle, I can talk about the other end of the spectrum for older rowers, and it's called the Ancient Mariners rowing team.
Sure.
And they're kind of famous. What they are is a men's rowing team geared towards older rowers. They're not a team you would join if you were a newbie, maybe. It's pretty like plug and play, like you go if you were in that group. And these guys rowed at, I met one guy and he's like, University of Washington class of 1952. And they rowed, in the 50s. And these guys are really, really remarkable to watch. They, just like every other senior rower you might see, have a lot of challenges. And one of those challenges, not specific to the Mariners, but I think with senior rowers, is their bodies just don't really work in the rowing strokes. I think as coaches, we need to be really creative. Like in the team that I coached, I like to do pause drill to get people calibrated, right? Get them moving back and forth. I had a whole 8 of people who had no bodies over. Their hips just don't work. I had someone with spinal stenosis in the bow. I had a shoulder rebuild in 4-seat. You name it. It was like, there's no bodies over. So instead of me pushing that point, I'm like, let's just do hands away. Let's just do a different pause position. Like,
Sure.
You have to just look at your crew and go, how can I make that boat work really well today? And then the other thing I wanted to riff off of what you said was people starting rowing at a later age. And
I think, go ahead.
I had a learn to row student who was 82 years old, and you just have to be mindful. I mean, you have to be like, when was the last time you went from standing, put yourself on the ground on purpose, rolled into an unstable object, did some exercise, and then rolled out and then got yourself up without any assistance? I mean, that's kind of what we were talking about.
Yeah.
Like, got to make sure they're safe,
Yeah. I think there's so much for masters rowing. There's a lot of discussion about elite rowing, and everybody likes to watch the World Cup and the World Championships and things like that. But I think that as we all get older, and everybody gets older, you either get older or you die. So you'd rather just get older. And if you can keep doing the things that you love or try new things like rowing, that's going to keep you young. And I think that's what people realize more and more. So as we're talking to our audience out there, a lot of you are masters rowers, and I think that is obviously fantastic. But I think the other part is to make sure that you keep recruiting new, older people, right? So your peers, your friends, your, potentially your parents' friends and so on, or older friends, and let them know that you can't be too old to start. And I think that's what keeps the mind fresh, that keeps the body active. And that's what everybody wants is, they want to live healthily, and they want to live in a positive group of people. And that's obviously what rowers bring world around, world over, is that positive, fun outlook of being outside and doing something new. I've coached lots of people that have rowing simply as a bucket list item.
Totally.
They might be 60, they might be 80, and they do it once or twice, and they say, okay, that was great, I did it, and that's all they wanted. But you give those folks, and knowing in advance that that's what they're wanting and that's what they're yearning for, is then those couple of lessons, you're not going to get, you're not going to go to 30 strokes a minute or anything like that, and there's no point to.
You don't need
right.
to.
So knowing what people want is really important.
Well, I would tell people, hey, you showed up. That's like 100% more than the person sitting on their butt watching Jeopardy's doing, right? And 2, you're challenging yourself. You're challenging your mind. Maybe you were the CEO of your company. I get to be the CEO today. Mark gets to be the CEO. Just let it go. Let us be in charge. Let us teach you how to do this. And bucket list is a big thing. I mean, how many people have we met who are of all ages who said, I read the Boys in the Boat book and I want to try it. I want to put my hand on an oar. I want to try what they felt like. I want to feel what they felt. I mean, so many people read that book and are from that generation even, or from the next generation after that class of 1936. And I got really curious about it. We had, and I'm thinking one way that we got people introduced to the sport was we did one of those intro to rowing days, but we invited the Women's University Club book club. And these women were well into their 80s and 90s. And all they wanted was that experience. They had read The Boys in the Boat, and they just wanted to sit in the boat. And I wish I had given us the picture that I took of this woman who was in her 90s and was like, no, I don't want to get in the boat. I don't want to get in the boat. And it was just a dockside situation. Because dockside is a great way to just put someone in a boat, see if they can get down in the seat, put the oar in their hand, feel the water against the oar.
Right.
She refused to do it. And I was like, and she was also like 5'11" and had never played sports. I mean, we see that all the time, these older women rowers especially. She got in the boat, she sat down, she took that stroke. I have a picture of her face, the joy of like, oh, look what I did. You know, it was so great. And I think I see that with the people who I coach who are still curious, who are still in learning mind, who are moving their bodies and feeling the adrenaline and feeling the endorphins, right? And they're feeling alive.
Right. I think one of the things too that people need to realize out there is making sure that there's venues and opportunities, but also just that personal encouragement. I think what you just said, the one word that really struck me right there was invited. Oftentimes boathouses put out open houses or learn to row days or explore rowing or whatever it happens to be. But really that personal invitation is what's going to bring people down to the boathouse. And if they, that's key. So I love that word, inviting people to do whatever you're trying to offer, and I think that's really great.
And it's, yeah, and one thing I would suggest also for boathouses, we had to address this at our boathouse, was you need to review your policies. You need to review your safety policies. If you're seeing your population aging, and this is directed at all the boathouse directors, if you're seeing your population aging, you need to look at your safety protocols. Because if you've got older rowers going out on their own, having high-vis requirements, do they need help carrying their boats down to the dock? In terms of carrying boats, we went to a policy of 10 people carry an 8, 6 people carry a quad or a 4. Like, no question. We would not take an 8 out unless there were 10 people in the boathouse, because we had so many variables of bad shoulders and bad wrists, and I can't carry, and I like to carry oars, or you really have to look at your population and make necessary policies. And that also helps people feel heard. It helps people feel supported. And we're not just making assumptions like we started the conversation. We're not making assumptions that these are elite rowers who, oh, of course you can carry your boat. Of course you know how to dock the boat. Of course you know how to call drills. Of course you know how to, we can't assume that. I had a rower who hadn't coxed, a master's rower who hadn't coxed in a long time, who wouldn't admit to me that she was nervous about coxing, didn't feel like she could say that because she had some pride, right? She crashed the boat. And I'm like, just let's have a conversation, and as a coach, I should have said, how do you feel about coxing? But you're coaching 25 people,
Yeah. So we've been talking a lot about the older generations, but obviously, to become an older rower, you can be a younger rower at the beginning, right? So I love some of the photos that if you're listening to this on the radio, you're not going to see the photos, but there's photos of young people rowing, and it's important that those kids get a positive experience as well, and then want to come back. So one of the photos that's on the screen right now is a coxed single. This is in the south of France, and it's basically a plastic boat with 2 kids in it, no steering, obviously, just a sculler, and then a little molded seat for the other rider. And what this group would do, they would go out and row for about an hour, or they're on the water for about an hour, and one of the children would row for about 25 minutes, head out into the lake, and then they would jump out, both of them, and swim around for a little bit, and then they would switch seats. So then the other one got to row back, and the one that rowed out got to be the rider. And it was just so invigorating to see these young people rowing healthily, rowing happily, and they're getting that very, very positive first impression. And whether or not you're 9 years old, like the young lady in the picture is right now, or if you're 90, literally, it's just about being safe and having fun and going out and enjoying it. So hopefully there's a smile on their face and not too self-conscious. I think that's something too that you were alluding to, is being, sometimes people are, they're afraid to take risks, or they're afraid to ask questions. And so when I'm coaching people all the time, I ask, is there any questions here? Do you want to, am I making myself clear? Because it is really true that there is different vocabulary around the country and around the world for basically the same thing. So you want to make sure that people have the opportunity and it's clear that questions are okay,
Yeah. And I'm seeing a question on the screen right now. What are some considerations for not blowing out your body as a collegiate rower? I was not a collegiate rower. I was a collegiate athlete, but not a collegiate rower. And I can say that knowing a lot of moms of collegiate rowers who are currently rowing in some very competitive programs, it takes a lot of clarity and transparency to keep your body healthy. Honestly, it's a lot about communication, and it's a lot about managing expectations. And I think knowing your body, having a good program that actually does have PT available, or good doctors available, and coaches who aren't just ignoring obvious signs of discomfort.
Right.
I think I've met some former collegiate rowers who had such negative experiences that they literally left sport altogether, like no sports, and won't touch an erg, won't go near a rowing machine, won't go near a boat, and slowly are making their way back to it because it is an amazing sport. So what do you think, Mark?
Well, I think there's a lot of things that collegiate rowers need to do. And one of them is, to listen to their body. Like you said, everybody's 100% is going to be different on any given day. And when I was coaching collegiately, I would tell them that early on in the season, your 100% today, for whatever workout is going to be different than your 100% potentially next week. And sometimes it's more positive and sometimes it's less based upon sleep, eating habits, whatever happened, the amount of studying that you did, travel, personal things going on at home. There's so many things that go on in collegiate athletes' heads and bodies that you do have to be aware of what's going on. So not being afraid to tell your coach, hey, I'm not making an excuse, but this is going on right now. And I think that's really important. It's really hard, very honestly, it's very difficult for athletes to be able to say that they're not up to 100% today, but the coaches can understand. It's like everybody's 100% is different. I think that's important. I was very fortunate. I rowed for a long time in college, more than most, and certainly for more coaches than most. And I missed. I think I missed one day of my career of not being able to row. In fact, I even rowed the day I got 4 wisdom teeth taken out. So I didn't try to miss too many practices, but I knew if I really needed to, I could ask the coach and tell him that was okay, and that was okay.
So one thing I wanted to mention, I visited a chiropractor out here in Seattle who was on the national team, and his wife is a gold medal rower, and they're a great company out here in Seattle. And I asked him, I said, why do you think rowers can be so injured as masters? And he said he felt like it was because the culture of rowing is don't stop, suffer through the discomfort. Suffering is a big part of it. So, one thing I wanted to counter what you said, or just add to what you said, is as an older rower who used to row in college and back in the day, we call them the glory days rowers, right? They have to understand their 100% now is not what it was then. Their erg scores now are not going to be. So it's helpful to look at, Concept 2's world rankings and look at your age group and say, okay, not 22. Okay, now I'm going to look at the 65s and see. And
then you're shocked. And then you're shocked at what those people are doing at 65. And then you decide whether or not you're going to try to be in the top 20% or 10%, and don't try to be the top guy.
So. Yeah. So my parting thought is, be thoughtful, coaches. Put together workouts that work for your groups. Be a great boathouse that's welcoming. What about you, Mark? Any last thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think all of that is good. And I think just being aware of what you're doing and what you're trying to do. You're trying to do exercise, but you're not trying to kill yourself. So, understand what you're trying to do and get outside every day if you can, or if it's every other day, that's great. And just work on the things too outside of the boat. I talk a lot about that, flexibility, hydration, nutrition, some strength training, all of those things you're doing outside of the boat so that your rowing can be that much more effective and that much more fun. So if you're rowing fun, you're going to row better, and that's just really nice. So
great. So I wanted to put a little plug here. A few years ago, I started this kind of random project called the Lifelong Rowing Project. And at the time, I got over 100 responses from around the world. And where this goes and what this becomes, I'm hoping it becomes some sort of book or website that everybody can see themselves in. And there's a survey that you can do, and you can submit a photo of yourself. I've gotten some great responses because I do ask you the question of describe the perfect stroke. And there's so many different schools of thought on that. So if you're interested in being part of the Lifelong Rowing Project, go to this website, seizetheoar.com/lifelongrowing. It's a simple survey. We'd love to learn more about you, and it's meant for rowers 50 and older. So go ahead and take that. And next week, we are going to talk about head racing. Yay, I'm a head racer. I love head racing. What about you, Mark?
I love head racing.
Yeah. We're going to talk about our favorite races, maybe talk about some training plan ideas for individual rowers, some hot races you should get on that maybe have some deadlines coming up. What else, Mark? Anything?
Yeah, summer how you start training for your head racing now, in the summer. So
yeah.
Important. Yeah. I do have one. We got a gadget.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I want to go over my gadget. This is submitted to us by a friend of mine, actually, Perry Sperber, over at the Halifax Rowing Club in Daytona Beach, Florida. And you put me on the screen there. I'll show you how this thing works. This thing is great. This is a spread mechanism that actually utilizes the tracks. So instead of measuring gunnel to gunnel, you're actually measuring from the true center line of each seat based upon the tracks. So this unit sits on the tracks like so, and then it self expands to the proper axle length. And then then you use this top piece is obviously engineered to be at the center, and you hook your tape measure onto that out to your oarlock. So that allows you to truly get accurate spread in either a sculling boat or a sweep boat. And there's his website. Let me see if I can get it on my camera. It might be upside down. Let me turn it over. RedErow.com. RedErow. RED-E-ROW.com. The other really handy thing with this is that these two slots are for the wheel adjustments. So again, the mechanism sits inside the center of the track. Any track, it sits right in there. And then you can check your wheels at each seat to see if they're actually in the center of the track.
Wow.
Those wheels need to be in the center so that they roll well. If you look at most seats of your 8s or 4s or singles or quads or whatever, you will see that some of the wheels are wearing unevenly, and that is causing extra friction and noise and wear in your boats. So this is a great little tool, and you can contact Perry, and he has these ready to go at this point. But this is and it comes apart for transport. So this part can actually come apart with a simple screw. You can slide it down, you take it with you when you travel around. So It's a great little tool for boathouses. This is more of a boathouse tool rather than a individual tool, but it's a great piece of equipment. And awesome. He's got some other great products too, and I might talk about another one next time.
So thanks so much, Mark, and thanks to Perry for providing that. If you have a hack or a trick or a gift idea or website or tip, we would love to hear about it. So go ahead and send it in using our gadgets and gear form. And we hope you tune in next week. We want to thank our guest, our correspondent, Mark Wilson from All American Rowing Camp. We want to thank Charlotte Pierce from Pierce Press. Collaboration is the new competition. I love that. That's awesome. And we had Mark on the next screen with his rowing camps. Those look really, really fun. And I'm Tara Morgan with Seize the Oar Foundation, and also repping Vashon Island Rowing Club, and also run a Facebook page called Learn to Row. And next week, again, head racing previews, head racing training. So thanks to our sponsors for making this podcast possible. My gosh, that's a lot of S's. Find discounts and links at .chat/sponsors. Have a great week.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks.
Yeah.